Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Megan Demina. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at AppBuddy, now a product of Validity. Thank you for taking the time for today's webinar, How to Maximize Salesforce Adoption, with guests Nana Gregg, VP Senior Salesforce Administrator at JLL, and Marshall King, Senior Vice President of IT Solutions at JLL. If you're unfamiliar with Validity, we'd like to tell you a little bit about us real fast. We offer a full stack of solutions to target, contact, engage, and retain customers effectively. Tens of thousands of organizations rely on Validity solutions, which include demand tools, Bright Verify, trust assessments, return path, and now GridBuddy. Now for a few housekeeping items. Actually, sorry, we're new to this tool, so I did miss moving the slides. So now for a few housekeeping items. The recording of today's webinar will be available tomorrow afternoon on the AppBuddy YouTube channel, AppBuddy website, and Validity website. But don't worry, we'll also email you a direct link of the recording, so no need to screenshot or take hurried notes unless, of course, you want to. Last, if you experience any technical difficulties, please sign off and attempt to reconnect. And with that, it is my pleasure to pass things over to Nana and Marshall.
All right. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to participate in this webinar. My name is Nana Gregg. I'm a VP and Senior Salesforce Administrator here at Jones Lang LaSalle. I'm an MVP, and I've also been an administrator for about 12 years, so I've been around a little while. And with me is Marshall King.
I'm Marshall King, Senior Vice President of IT Solutions for JLL Digital Solutions. I am essentially the platform owner manager for our Salesforce instance that we'll talk about here in just. I wanted to give you just a little bit of information about JLL just to give you some context for who we are and how our Salesforce system works. JLL is a Fortune 500 company with a very large global footprint. We have over 80,000 employees, and as you can see, we have people positioned all around the globe. Nana and I specifically work for JLL's Digital Solutions Group. We are the technology implementers and innovators within JLL, so we're the providing innovative technology solutions to our customers. Our team itself also spans the globe with employees on 5 continents. We have 600 different subject matter experts across that team. We have 16 unique and individual formalized technology practices offering solutions to our customers, which consists of over 400 different customers, and we've done over 5,000 different projects over the years with innovative technology solutions for our customers. As it relates to Salesforce, we have about 900 users in our org right now. We are multi-currency in company, so we operate in 16 currencies and 19 different legal entities. We are on the Salesforce Unlimited version, which we just upgraded to, so we're still exploring all of the new features we can use there. We also are heavy users of FinancialForce, so we use FinancialForce Professional Services Automation, Revenue Recognition, and Accounting to run our business. We, of course, are GridBuddy customers, big fans of GridBuddy. That's the first thing we implemented with FinancialForce was with that process. We also use a tool called Spec-It, which we're going to get into later in quite a bit of detail. We have a very active org. We typically have about 1,000 different active projects with people logging time and billing and invoicing against those projects. We have a PeopleSoft integration where we send our invoice transactions over to PeopleSoft, which is JLL's ERP system, so we can keep our data in alignment with the company system. In terms of our team, we're a team of 4, so we're a pretty lean team. I like to say we have 2.5 because we have Nana and another admin, and then I pretend to be an admin and usually get corrected when I do things incorrectly, but I play something of an admin role. We also have a full-time trainer and change manager, which we'll talk about again today because it's very relevant to adoption and our approach. I also like to emphasize that we're a low-code, no-code team. We don't have any developers on staff. We do everything with the platform, and we'll talk about that quite a bit, but we're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish without using code. And then we are on Lightning, and we love Lightning, and we'll talk about that quite a bit today as well.
All right. So, Marshall, now, why does adoption matter?
Well, obviously, we know why adoption matters, but why does it matter to us? We recently went through a huge growth spurt. This is a chart of the number of employees we onboarded in the last 12 months. It's cumulative. So altogether, we've onboarded 670 people. We used to have 300. So in the last 12 months, we basically grew by 200%. We did that partly through an acquisition of a company that does size, and then we went through an internal digital transformation that brought a lot of other technology groups within JLL under the digital solutions umbrella, so we had a single operating unit and a single operating model. So when we saw this huge spike coming over the horizon, we knew that we needed to be prepared for that in various ways, and one of those ways was specifically around training, onboarding, documentation, and adoption. So we basically put together an initiative to determine, how we were going to handle that.
Yep, absolutely. So today's discussion is really about adoption when we're implementing new features, when we're onboarding large groups of users, how we document and take kind of an iterative approach to training so that we can increase user adoption, how we've incorporated some of the new summer 19 updates as well as lightning updates to enhance user engagement in the system, and what we do to keep an open dialogue between end users and our team so that we can make sure that we're identifying in their training and adoption of the system and the tools that we've put into place. So why does adoption matter?
So you have probably heard all of these statements many times. We hear these all too often. I don't care. This doesn't apply to me. I don't understand why this is relevant. I don't know how to do what you're asking me to do. I'm just too darn busy to do it, or it's just too difficult. It's too much time.
Well, so, Marshall, are you talking about my kids?
It may feel that way, but I'm talking about our users, our employees. So we're going to go through each of these and just discuss how we tried to address each of these adoption barriers.
All right, and where do we start?
Well, we started by talking to our users, and we think that's really important. That's one takeaway we hope everybody will learn today, is that we really engaged our community in various ways, but one simple way was we sent out a survey. We basically asked our users how they felt about their knowledge of the various tools we use, not just Salesforce and FinancialForce-based tools. And so we assessed the user base to determine how they felt. And we also asked them how they like to learn. So we're hearing a lot these days about different generations and how they like to learn or don't like to learn. But what we're just finding is across a large, complex population, everybody likes to learn things a little bit differently. And so we knew that we needed to come to our users with multiple options, not a single option, but we didn't really know what options were preferred. So we asked, got some really good feedback, and used that to structure the approach that we took to this large adoption push.
But Marshall, how people like to learn doesn't really matter if they don't really even care about what happens in the system.
Yes, that's probably the biggest challenge that we often face, is people just don't seem to care. So we address that in a few different ways. One of them is just messaging. I used to do all of our training and onboarding, and as we grew and got bigger, it wasn't effective coming from me. It needed to come from their boss or their leader of their practice, or even the leader of our whole division. So we make sure that the message comes from the top, that what you're doing in the system, whether it's opportunity data or project data, whatever it may be, that it does matter. And we also try to make it visible that people are consuming that information. We have meetings where people are reviewing reports and reviewing dashboards so that people see that, the stuff that I'm doing or the stuff that I'm not doing really does make a difference, and people really do see it. And if it's not visible, then it doesn't people. So raising visibility by having people consume that information is really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the ways that we do that is we use some quality assurance reports and dashboards. And I'm going to jump over and show you one in particular that our users will use on a regular basis. Now, this is our sandbox, so caveat there, it was refreshed a while ago, so this data is really old. But on this particular dashboard, leaders, our sales team members, anybody managing accounts and opportunities can come to this. They can filter it by region. They can look and see whether it's their team that owns the opportunity or not. They can look and see if it's opportunities that they own or if it's opportunities that other people own that may be in accounts that they own, and see some of this quality assurance information. If it's an opportunity missing products, if it's an opportunity that's open and maybe it's at risk of slipping, maybe it's stale, there's been no stage changes in a long time. all of this information goes into whether we have a clean and accurate pipeline, right? And it feeds into all the data we use to make business decisions. So if everybody's consuming this information, of course, nobody likes to have their name on a dashboard. We can really use this type of information, these reports, these dashboards, to kind of really drive that what's in it for me messaging, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something we're going to actually dig into in more detail in a future slide. But one of the things we always focus on when we're rolling out either a new version of Salesforce, a new version of GridBuddy, maybe some new features that our leadership has asked for, we try to think about how we can message that to the user to show them what's in it for them. How can it possibly benefit them? Maybe simplify their life, maybe take away an Excel spreadsheet they've been managing outside of Salesforce and bringing it in. But it's important that when we put together a roll feature or plan that we try to make it relevant to the user by making sure they understand what's in it for them. We also focus on that onboarding messaging. We're going to go ahead and advance to the next slide because it's really relevant to the next topic as well, which is I don't know how. I don't know how to do something or something you've asked me to do. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a person whose sole job is training and documentation, and that's been hugely beneficial both in terms of just expanding our bandwidth and our capabilities, but also in terms of making sure that people have a consistent, that everybody's getting trained in the same way based on their job role. We have several different types of training we offer based on that person's functions within our organization and within Salesforce, so it's not a one-size-fits-all. And so we make sure that people are getting the same messaging, the same communications, and the same tools made available to them.
Yep. So along with that training, I'm going to share again, we're also taking advantage of some great features in Lightning, some features that we got with the summer 19 release, and we're using those in the system to try to help guide people and help show people what to do. So one of the great summer features that came out this year is the in-app guidance, where you can, if you're in Lightning, you can go to a specific page in a specific app, and you can build your own in-app guidance for the users. So in this case, on the Opportunities tab, when a user uses the Opportunities tab, we've got this nice little pop-up box that pops up, and it'll pop up. I can actually set it up to pop up once a day for the next year, or once a week for the next year, so that it reminds people of something they might need to do, or just kind of provide some additional guidance. A lot of times people forget that we've got grids where they can manage their open opportunities, and they work for a while and they forget that they do it, that we've got that available. And so they come to the Opportunities tab, and then they're managing their opportunities one at a time. So we've got this in-app guidance that says, hey, guess what? We've got these great grids, and you can even put a link. So they can click on the link and it'll open up that opportunity grid for them. So we're trying to put that information right at their fingertips, and we're using the tools that are available directly in the system to do that. Another feature that I really love is we call it enhanced user help. We use on our Lightning pages. So you can see here on this project page, we've got some messaging. It says the project is at risk. Please ensure you're conducting a weekly risk review meeting. So this is simply a rich text Lightning component that we've put information into that rich text Lightning component, and we either show or hide that information based on data on the record. So we can really get alerts and things just right to our users when they need it, when they're looking at the record, information to them. And we use that a lot in actually giving instructions. So you can take this rich text component, I'm showing you something right here, where you can put bullets in there. You can actually insert links out to other websites, maybe a box document or a video that they need to watch. You can even put nice little Bitmojis in there, but you can really guide the user as to what they need using these rich text components. And one of the cool things with the conditional visibility is you can use a user field to show or hide this information. So if you created the user in the last 60 days, you could actually have a flag on the user record that says this is a new user, and that rich text instructions box shows up only for new users that have that flag set. So you can really be dynamic with it. Lightning gives you some really great capabilities there.
Yeah, and as Nana said, it's a lot. I mean, often we'll bump up against a small problem. We'll think, oh, that's a perfect situation to throw up a warning dialog box or a warning box of some sort. We do it on opportunities related to opportunity quality data. We'll do it based on roles. So our billing team has different needs than our project managers, and so we can show them different information based on their role and based on conditions on the data. So this is one of our favorite features, and it's actually really easy to use. It takes very little time at all to set up and configure. So definitely would encourage people to look at that. Continuing the theme of trying to put things in front of the user, as Nana mentioned, again, we want to try to keep people inside of Salesforce. We don't want them to have to jump outside to other tools or have to remember where to go to find those training documents that Nana mentioned. So in addition to all of the in-app guidance and the custom lightning information, we've also implemented a tool called Spec-It. And I've described Spec-It in various ways, but it's really just like super duper souped up Salesforce help. We're all familiar with the Salesforce help bubbles that come out of the box that like 3 little lines of text, very minimal. Spec-It gives you rich text with formatting. You can see here Nana scrolling through a very formatted spec card, we often call them, that explains something. You can embed graphics. You can embed links if you do want people to jump out to another document that maybe has a lot more detail. You can document your whole data model. There's a lot of really cool features there, but the main thing is that you're putting it right there in front of the users. They don't have to go and jump outside of Salesforce to get to this information. And to date, as we roll out changes to features and new features, it's part of what our change manager does. When we're in a conversation about something new we're going to roll out, she's a part of that conversation, and while we're planning maybe some of the technical aspects, she's writing down what she needs to do for specs or what she needs to do for training. So it's sort of a holistic, integrated approach with our team.
Yeah, this has been really popular. It's a browser plugin, and so you can actually use it in other tools besides Salesforce. And there's a free version as well. I want you to go out and check it out for sure.
Yep, and then Nana did this earlier, but from the browser plugin, you can search. So you don't have to just have it next to a field. If you want to look up opportunity stages, you can do that from anywhere by searching.
Yep. So next up, we've also implemented our own kind of help desk to kind of manage and see what people are having trouble with, right?
Yeah, so we took advantage of Salesforce cases. We hadn't used it previously, but we felt like we needed to formalize the method for getting support for various reasons. One, to make it easier for our users. They don't have to remember the email or how to get help. They know they can go to this one place and get help from the Salesforce team. And as I mentioned, we support other tools, Box, Jira, Jama, and we do all that through this help desk. It also gives us a lot of valuable metrics. So, going back to the theme of knowing your users and knowing your community and evolving your program, we can look at all the cases that are coming in and we can identify common problems. We actually just did this last week with a FinancialForce feature that we modified because it was creating a lot of cases. So we just on the fly made some changes to try to reduce. So it's given us a lot of really valuable metrics on volume, on who's requesting things, what types of requests we're getting, so that we have another source of information and intelligence to try to decide how we want to work with our user community. We also use Slack as a department, and that's a very heavily used tool. So again, kind of continue the theme, go where your users are. Our users are in Slack. So we've set up some Slack channels specific to Salesforce and other tools. We monitor those and have set up alerts on those. People are in there asking questions. The Salesforce team is available to jump in. Our trainer, change manager, does this all the time. And again, sometimes she will learn from those comments in Slack, and then she'll take that back and create a new spec or update our documentation or maybe incorporate it into her training. So it is meant to be a continuous loop.
And then we've got our Chatter Slack stalking, Marshall.
That's really Nana's favorite thing to do. We use Chatter quite heavily. We chatter on opportunities and projects and accounts. There's a lot of communication in Chatter, especially as it relates to billing and setup of projects, because that's such an important part of our group. And so, Nana, why don't you tell them what you like to do in Slack?
In Chatter.
Sorry.
So one of my very favorite things to do in Chatter is if you go to your Chatter feed, you can click on Company Highlights, and basically the whole Chatter feed pops up. And I regularly go to the Company Highlights feed and just read. So I just scroll down and read and see what people are doing, what they're posting, what the comments are. Because what constantly will pop up is somebody asks a question on a record, somebody tries to answer them, maybe they answer incorrectly, maybe they answer correctly, but it shows that there's some training needed. So I'll take that and maybe take the link to the chatter post and send it to our trainer to see if she can jump in and provide a document that can help train people, or maybe she needs to reach out to them to give them some additional training. Oftentimes we find that maybe people are doing things wrong, so we need some different guidance, or we just start to see trends. So Marshall calls it chatter stalking. I just call it monitoring my org.
Well, Nana and I were preparing for this presentation, and one of the things that's really valuable in getting in touch with your community is walking around, right? Walking around the office and talking to people and seeing them work. But I'm sure most of you have this challenge. We're a global company. Our office is very small. In fact, today there are only 4 of us in the office. So we can't walk around, and chatter and Slack stalking kind of gives us that ability to engage the users as they're working right then and there.
Exactly. All right. Now, the next one is, all of that. You've given me lots of tools, lots of things, but I'm way too busy to do all the things you've asked me to do.
So, again, we've looked at technical solutions to some of this. We'll talk about those first, and we'll talk about some other sort of organizational solutions. One of the ones that we love is Grid Buddy. So, like I mentioned, when we implemented FinancialForce, 6 years ago, we brought in Grid Buddy at the same time because we wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to manage this really important data that was critical to running the business. Here's an example of a grid that Nana can walk us through, but it's basically taking information we want people to manage, putting it in a nice, easy, editable grid. So this one is My Open Opportunities. So anybody who manages opportunities can run this. It's immediately filtered to their data. The color coding indicates data problems. As Nana mentioned, this is a sandbox, so this data is a few weeks or a month old. But the red indicates that your opportunity data is in the past, which should never happen. You can't close things in the past. You can only close things in the future. But we give them just the key fields that they need to manage. There are other fields on an opportunity, but we're just presenting them with the key data that they need. We've got another grid, Nana, if you want to flip over to that, which is for projects. So the same thing, a project manager can go and wait here a second for the screen to catch up with us.
Yeah, it's a sandbox. Sandboxes are notoriously slow. All right, we've got several different ones. So
a project manager can see his or her active projects with milestones and other data they need to manage.
It's got a lot.
Yeah. And again, there are a lot of fields on a project or a milestone, but we're just presenting to them the ones that they need to update and the ones that are important for them to visually see and consume. So instead of going one by one and updating a project or a milestone, they can do it all in one place. Yeah. So, just trying to find little tools and techniques. We've done some things like this with list views. List views can be helpful for mass updating data. But Nana's going to talk about this in a minute, but where are the blockers? Where are the things that are time consuming or challenging or even boring, and try to find ways to spice them up?
Yeah, exactly. So we were talking about projects, and one of the things that we've done on our projects is we sort of took a combination of the Lightning pages and Grid Buddy, and we kind of mashed them up together to really make the project management experience better for our users. And we did this by engaging the end users and talking to them about what they're doing when they're looking at a project record, and seeing what we could do to overcome this. I'm too busy, there's too many clicks, it's too hard to use, right? So we've got a project page right here, and the first thing we did is we looked at and talked to them about how they wanted to lay out the information. And Marshall mentioned we were looking at projects with milestones. And for our projects, the milestones represent the statement of work. So the project manager is having to come in and manage these milestones on a daily basis. They take a look at the project data, and they need to manage these milestones. And we don't want them to have to manage the milestones one at a time like you normally would in a related list. So we've been able to take this, the milestones, and we've embedded that milestone right here on the page layout. And you see here, we've got some rich text. And this was just an example that we can have this rich text instructions or components pop up anywhere, you can put it under a tab as well.
And if you're not a Princess Bride fan, you're probably baffled by that quote. So
yes.
Apologies in advance.
But we've embedded this grid so that they can literally just very easily, staying right here on the project record page where it's important and where they're getting their information, and make their edits. Now you can see they're having to go and they're having to scroll. There's some fields they have to scroll over. So we also took advantage of being able to create a custom Lightning page template with a collapsible sidebar. So we can collapse that sidebar over, and now they've got almost full screen to manage these milestones. So we've kind of combined multiple tools to be able to kind of get over that I'm too busy, it's too hard to use. We're making it really easy as we possibly can for them to get their jobs done. And we're constantly working with them to try to do those things.
Yeah, and we don't have enough time to go through all of our objects, but we've done a similar approach on every object that's important. So opportunities, we use products really heavily. So products are on their own tab, and we also track our documents. So notes and files are on a tab. Accounts are a little bit different. Contacts are on a tab. So you can optimize each of those objects for what people need to do, what people need to see, how quickly they need to access it. And again, you can do this by app as well. So different user communities can have a different experience, which is the experience that they want. An example we can't show you today, but our billing team, they have this wide full screen project page that Nana and I just hate. We think it's a waste of space and it's ugly, but that's what they wanted and it works for them, and we don't have to look at it. You know, it's meant for them. So those are some really great features of Lightning that we try to take advantage of.
Absolutely. And then another feature that kind of combines Lightning, it also combines some of those declarative tools that we have with Salesforce, is using Process Builder and Flow to take something that is maybe a pretty time-consuming process that is causing people to say, I'm too busy, and try to streamline that for them in the system using these tools so that we can give them back some time that they can use to work on something else. You want to?
Yeah, so as Dana mentioned Flow, we love Flow. Like every time somebody asks for something, I'm like, can we do that with a Flow? Because it's just a lot of fun to build development without code. So this is an example that our billing team uses. We often have projects with a recurring monthly fixed fee milestone, maybe for hosting services. And so it could be 1 year, 2 years, could be 5 years. So you're talking about 60 milestones. That's just boring and tedious and, you know, a waste of somebody's time. So what we did is we created this flow with a form, a flow screen, where the billing analyst can basically fill in the key data, the name of the milestone, the dates, the other financial parameters, and then they hit the button and it creates 24, 36, 60 milestones, whatever they've requested, all in one step. And we identified this, again, just by talking to them. We happen to sit with most of the billing team here in our office in Dallas, so we could actually get with them in face-to-face, which is helpful. But we can do this virtually as well and just ask them what are the things that are time-consuming or what are the things that are tedious. It doesn't require a lot of knowledge to do this. It's just clicking a bunch of times. And so how can we eliminate some of those clicks?
Exactly. One of my very favorite examples of this is we did when an opportunity gets closed won, we have to create a project. And there's a lot of things to create a project. As you can see here, there's a lot of related objects. There's budgets, there's milestones, rate cards. And doing it manually, we did a little time study with the billing team because they're very busy. And we wanted to see what we could do to make things easier for them. And we did a little time study. It took about 14 minutes on average to set up a project all by itself. And we were able to create a flow on the opportunity that gathered a lot of the data already for them, and they just had to fill out a few little forms. And we got that process down from 14 minutes to about 4 minutes. So now we've given them back 10 minutes for every new project they have to create, which is huge. So now they can focus on other things besides just creating records in the system. So it's just working, keeping those ears open, working with your users, and then using the tools in the system, Process Builder, Flow, Grid Buddy, these Lightning page layouts, right, to help optimize things and give time back to your end users.
Yeah, exactly. So along those lines, again, kind of focusing on Lightning just because it's been so valuable to us, is navigation and personalization. There have been a lot of really cool features and improvements in Lightning to help users make their Salesforce experience their own without any help from an admin or even a trainer once they get the hang of it. So Nana's going to walk us through a few things, but there are a lot of really nice navigation features which just make it super easy to jump around and get your job done.
Yeah, we focused a lot on this during our Lightning rollout. Because we really wanted to kind of give the users that what's in it for me. We keep coming back to some of these same topics, but they all really make up how well people adopt the system, right? And some of these navigation features are just found through recent records, if it'll show up, because it's the sandbox and I'm slow. We're refreshing now. Nice. Bear with me here. As we refresh, there we go. So now I'm on the Dashboards tab. It shows you your most recent records. If you've got any favorites, it shows you favorites. So maybe I want to favorite a dashboard. And so we show our users how to favorite things. And they can click on the star, and they can favorite a dashboard, and then it's going to be in their list. They can rearrange the favorites in their list, and then they to those things that they favorited. They can favorite reports. They can favorite individual records. They can favorite list views. It's just like favoriting things in your browser or bookmarking something. So this is a really great way to help users understand that they can save things that are important to them. An additional thing that they can do that we really love, I'm going to get that to go away, is, for instance, maybe you've got an account manager who manages several accounts. I'm going to go to my recent record. I visited this account and pull up this account, and maybe I need to look at this account every day. Maybe I need to get information from this account every day. And so you can show your users how to open this account record in a new tab. So you see I've got this tab here. It's kind of a temporary tab. And then I'm going to add it to my nav bar. So now you can show your user that they can add that particular account, that one account that they look at every day, to their navigation bar. So now you save time. They don't have to search for it. They don't have to go click on the Accounts tab and then find it. It's right there for them every day. And so giving your users kind of some of those tips and tricks to use the system, you can kind of cut down some of that I'm too busy, because they can really customize that experience to exactly what they need to get to.
Yeah, exactly. And you can make a report its own tab. You can make a dashboard its own tab. So again, highlighting the ways people can get that information as quickly as possible just makes it that much easier for them to use the system, and they're that much more likely to get in and use it and do what you've asked them to do.
Exactly.
Lastly, sometimes it's not a technical solution. Sometimes it is a discussion that needs to be had. Maybe these people really are too busy, truly too busy, and there's not much you can do about that. So maybe we need to look at balancing out the workload, or looking at who performs which tasks in the system. We always use this concept when we're looking at rolling out something new. If somebody comes to us and says, I'd like to start tracking this information about opportunities, we ask the question, who's going to maintain it? Who's going to consume it? How much time will it take? And we make sure there's really a strong, valid business case for it, and that it's not going to add unnecessary work to somebody's plate or just overburden them if they're already busy. So, it's not all technical. It is often business. It is often communications and conversations. We like to try to take both approaches. We think there's a lot you can do to make the system appealing and make it valuable so that people want to use it and enjoy using it, but there also have to be some of those other messagings and conversations outside.
Exactly. And then from there,
you look at how you did.
Right. We've done all of these things, right? We've got Speckit, we've got Grid Buddy, we've got grids, we've got flows we've built, we've got screens we're using, and Lightning that we've adopted. And how do we know any of that's working, right? Yeah,
so we take advantage of a lot of tools that are out there and available. Lightning adoption, when you deploy Lightning, there's a great Lightning adoption dashboard and metrics that are out there. So you can see who's using it and who's not, who's switching back to Classic and who's not. You can look at that by group or population. So it might be that certain teams or certain profiles or certain countries are challenged. And so you can use that knowledge to, again, look at your training, look at your documentation, talk to those users and find out what's going on and try to, fine tune that approach.
You can even look at it by objects. So it'll tell you which objects people are on when they're switching back to Classic, which is really huge when you're trying to optimize pages. If they're switching back to Classic for some reason every time they go to the opportunity object and an opportunity record, then maybe there's something that's not there.
Yeah.
So you can reach out, find out the people that are switching, talk to them, and take care of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. In addition to Lightning, GridBuddy has some great analytics so we can see which grids are being used, how often, by whom. So again, same thing, we can determine, why is this one population of salespeople not ever using the grids? Maybe they don't know about it. Maybe they don't like them. So it's again, an opportunity to open up a conversation with your users and identify possible solutions. There are also some analytics with Speckit, so we'll consume that Speckit information on who's using which cards and who's adopted Speckit.
Yeah, and then one of my very favorite analytics, we were talking about Flow. Obviously, we get a little excited about Flow because we've built some super cool things with Flow. We've built all these, screens where we can capture data and we can automatically create projects and milestones and things. But are people using them? It stinks when you build something and you're not sure if people are using them or not. So we actually have what we call Flow Analytics. And I'm going to scroll down onto our dashboard here. And you can say we call it Automation Analytics. And we have embedded into the process builders and the flows that we've created just a really simple record create. It's a simple custom object that we call Automation Analytics. And it records when people use those functions. So when they run the flow and the process builder gets kicked off, it records a record that says this was run by whom and when. So we can see which ones are being used, which ones are not being used, who's using them, how often they're using them, and we can go back to those populations and say, hey, we developed this for you. It looks like you're using it. How's it working? Or we developed this for you. You haven't used it at all. What's the deal? Did you forget about it, right? And we can continue to measure the outcome of what we've put into place.
Yep, and we did a custom object that I think has one field in addition to the standard field and a very simple subflow that you just call at the end of your flow or your process. So it was super easy to do, and we love it. We love getting those analytics. And also, too, if you're an admin, you need to often go back to your leadership and say, look at all the cool stuff I did. So I can take this dashboard and say, look at what my team is doing. We're so busy. We're doing awesome stuff. Here's all the value we're providing to you. The last thing I'll talk about here is just that we continue to do surveys. We showed you that survey at the beginning of the process. We've resent that survey out to assess how we did in our recent adoption push. And I apologize for not having the numbers right in front of us, but we saw some improvement. We saw some things stay flat, and we use that to basically continue the adoption journey. Because as we know, adoption is a circle, not a straight line. You continuously want to go and find opportunities to improve adoption in the system.
And the system's always changing, right? Yeah. We get upgrades, we get new features, versions, we get new processes in our business. So this is just something that you just constantly got to keep front of mind.
Yeah, and we also do send out a survey after every training. So we try to find out how each training session was going, how relevant it is, things like that. So just a lot of different ways that we can bring information in that we can then use to analyze and build out a program to hopefully continuously increase adoption, improve user satisfaction, improve the quality of our data, all driven towards being able to manage the business and give users a real positive experience.
Yep, absolutely. And you'll always have users that struggle and but everything that you can do to make the system easier. When they love the system, they use the system. And with that, I think we've got a little bit of time for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marshall and Nana. I love that you started and ended with that survey idea and staying connected with the community because it's actually going to lead right into our first question that we have. But I do want to remind everyone that it is time for the questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into that question applet. It should be to the left of your screen. So the first question we have comes from Barb, and she says, what survey tool do you use to send out your survey?
We use Get Feedback. We like it because you can integrate it with Salesforce, but you don't have to. So some of our surveys are integrated with Salesforce custom objects. Some of them we just send as needed.
They're also really easy to use.
Yeah.
You can answer the questions on your mobile device. So again, adoption, we want to make it as easy as possible for our users to respond to those surveys.
Yep, exactly.
Wonderful. So this next question comes from Alicia, and she says, you mentioned you have a full-time person who is dedicated to training and documentation. I'm curious to know more about the size and structure of the whole team that supported this role out and onboarding.
Sure. So we have 900 users in the system, and they are of a variety of types. We have some people who all they do is enter time, since we are billing for projects. But we have salespeople, we have account managers, we have billing team, finance team, practice leads. We have a pretty diverse population.
And they're all over the world.
And they're all over the world, all different time zones. So she's supporting all 900 of those users from a training and learning perspective. In terms of the Salesforce team itself, we have Nana here, who's our rock star senior administrator. We have another administrator who handles a lot of user onboarding and offboarding and reporting and things like that. And then I kind of play a hybrid business analyst, admin, support type role. So we have a pretty small team, but we felt like it was important to have a person focused on documentation and change management.
Yeah, especially since we were growing so quickly. We knew we were doing an acquisition, and we were going to basically double our size. We have probably about 600 objects in our org at this point in time. We were a super complex system, and we had not done documentation. We were really bad at it.
I was actually going to say, I literally hate documentation myself personally.
And training.
Yeah, so I was happy to get somebody who, she actually loves it, which blows my mind, but she loves doing it, so it's a perfect match.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a lot to track. So it's a good thing you found someone who loves to do it.
Exactly.
Next question is, for a lot of this custom work, do you need to use a developer at all?
We don't have a developer on staff. So all of the things that we've shown you are non-developer. It's all declarative.
Yeah, the closest thing to any development we've done would be formula fields, or validation rules. Sure.
And the flows are a little more advanced, obviously, but there's so many resources out there to learn how to use flow. There's obviously Trailhead. There's so many great blog posts, Automation Champion. There's the automation hour that happens once every other week where people showcase the flows that they're building. Yeah, we've done everything that we've shown here declaratively, including adding on apps and managing those as well.
Awesome. So next question is there any reason why you don't use Lightning console views for custom apps versus classic console view?
Our users, we've just never used console apps. For us, we've used console app for managing cases, but we've always just used the regular apps and not the console apps. It's just just the way that we developed our org. And we, at this point in time, the console apps, for me, my personal opinion on a console app is that it's for maybe a higher level of technical user because it's got a lot going on, right? You can open a ton of tabs and you can see a lot of things on the screen at once, which can tend to overwhelm some levels of users. And so we've just focused on using the standard apps.
Awesome. So kind of a style preference and then going back again to knowing your users.
Exactly.
Perfect. All right, so can you briefly explain the Lightning components and the Grid Buddy? Oh, I love that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Grid Buddy, it actually, when you install Grid Buddy, you get 3 different Lightning components from Grid Buddy. One is for grids, one is for Grid Buddy tabs, and I can't remember the other one. I'd have to look. But there's 3 different Lightning components that you get installed when you install Grid Buddy. And so you can actually take all of your grids and you can embed them on any page. It's Lightning components. So a record page, a home page, an app page, and you can embed sets of grids, tabbed grids. You can have a grid that automatically filters to the record of the page that it's on. There's some really fabulous functionality for embedding those grids into the page layouts.
And it's all part of that Lightning Page Designer. So if you've built a Lightning page or configured a Lightning page, those components show up in the sidebar, and you drag and drop them onto the page, and you do a little configuration on the sidebar. But it works pretty much like other Lightning components.
It does, and of course, AppBuddy always provides fabulous documentation and support. So they're always eager to jump in there and help you if you need any help figuring out how to configure the grids as well.
Thanks, guys. So the next question is, I saw the project management grid. Does that mean that Salesforce can manage large projects from a lead to execution?
So we use a app, or sorry, I hate calling it an app because it's so much more than that, but we use FinancialForce in addition to Salesforce. So we're managing our projects with FinancialForce.
Yep.
There is a continuum for us from lead to account to opportunity to project to invoice by using those 2 apps embedded together. So that's not native to Salesforce.
Yeah.
Okay. So Andrea says, thank you for this webinar. You're welcome, Andrea. Thanks for saying thanks. Great info. And she says, thanks to you for not getting too salesy. Oh, you know what? It's not a question, but thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Brett is asking, do you measure adoption? We found it hard to define across the heterogeneous user base, which makes it hard to measure.
That's a really good question, and Marshall and I actually talked about that when we were going through this, about how do you define adoption, right?
Yeah, and one of the ways we define it, maybe I don't know who else does this, a lot of it we define based on data quality and data accuracy. If we've got good pipeline reports and good revenue forecasts and our projects are being managed, then we know that we're getting good user engagement and participation. And there are a lot of different ways based on different objects that we can do that. As Nana mentioned during the health check, you can look and see how the last time an opportunity was updated and the stage was changed, or even if a date is in the past, if it's in the past, you know somebody's not doing what you need them to do because they obviously aren't pushing out their close dates. For projects, we have a couple of elements that people update, and we actually have a formula behind the scenes that tracks when it was updated. So we can see this project hasn't been touched in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months. And so we know, again, there's sort of an adoption issue. It's hard to get user login statistics in Salesforce, so you can't really see how many people are logging in each day, although you can get some of that with the Lightning adoption dashboards. But it's various ways of defining what adoption means. And ultimately, if we're getting valuable information to run our business and it's not burdening the users and taking them away from other key functions, then we consider that to be successful adoption. That's really what we're working toward.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think this question kind of leads, piggybacks off that too. So have you noticed higher rates of user adoption since switching from Classic to Lightning?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's just an unequivocal yes. Simply because we've been really able to tailor that experience to that end user need. That project page that we showed there, that's just black and white difference between Classic and Lightning. And in Classic, you can't provide some of those flow screens. You can't put the notifications at the top of the screen that there's an issue with the data. So people love being told, to be able to look at a record and not to have to actually scan all the fields to know that something's wrong, because there's automatically some text there that tells them that something's wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, entering data is not somebody's, you don't want people entering data. They need to enter data or update it, but that's not the key function. The key function is consuming it, right?
Yeah.
And what I love about Lightning is that mix where you can enter, consume, present different information, a chart, like Nana said. So it's that ability to really easily present back to your users the data that they need instantly, instead of them having to remember to go and run a report or do something else, because you can do so much on a Lightning page. So yeah, we're big Lightning fans. Even when I was talking about Lightning offline, we're more than happy to do that, because we had a really good experience migrating to Lightning. We actually thought it was a lot of fun and a great project, and it's been very beneficial for us.
That's fantastic. It seems like a total bear to me, so that's amazing that you have fun with it.
Give us a call.
Yeah. So Alicia is asking, what would you say was the total time frame from first launching most users were comfortable using the system?
Good question.
Well, that's a tough one, because we implemented 6 years ago with 150 users. Now we have 900.
Well, and if you think about, I mean, I think maybe the question is more of like right now, if we train someone right in the system, when do they feel comfortable? It's a good question to put on our survey, you know, and it probably depends on the level of the user. We have some users that pretty much log in once a week and they log time, and that's it. They don't manage projects, they don't manage opportunities. Their probably level of comfort is pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because they get in, they know what to do, they get out. A project manager or an account manager might have a lot longer time to feel comfortable in the system, just because there's so much they need to understand and learn. But it is a good question. I don't know if we are asking that in our survey.
No, and I've heard people talk about, time to onboarding, and it's a hard, like Nana said, it's a hard thing to measure. What's that point when you consider them onboarded? But it'd be an interesting problem to try to tackle. So that's something we probably should look at in our program.
Awesome. Taking notes. All right, so I think we're out of time there. Yeah. Unless anyone has any last minute questions, I don't see any coming through. So thank you everyone for attending. We're going to stop there. If we didn't get to your question, or if you just come up with a new question later, please feel free to reach out to Nana or Marshall. And you can always tweet your questions to Validity using the handle at TrustValidity. And we'll be sure to respond as quickly as possible. Thanks again for being with us today. And I'm Megan, and from all of us at Validity, have a wonderful day. Thank you, Nana. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
Thank you.